In the following video, we're going to talk about how to connect the brake flasher, how to configure it, and what is the difference between the S1, M2, X1, and X2 versions. First, we will review 4 different flasher versions, features, and methods of programming. Let's look at 4 different versions. Here are the flasher versions S1, M2, X1, and X2. There is no difference in appearance other than the labels. But each flasher has a different circuit and therefore different features. Here is the table describing the functionality of each flasher. Let's start with S1. The S1 flasher is a basic model with fixed 4 flashes and an adjustable flashing rate from fast to slow. The programming is very simple and can be done before the flasher installation with help of the 9V battery. The flash rate can be changed after the flasher is installed as well. The flasher is programmed by shorting a single wire. We will cover the programming in the next section. The M2 model is a more advanced flasher with 4 programmable parameters. You can change the flashing rate as well as the number of flashes. M2 also has 3 different flashing patterns where it could be set to rapid flashing, followed by slow flashing, or have a progressively decreasing rate. M2 also features an optional repeat mode, where the flashing will repeat after a small configurable delay. The flasher is programmed by shorting a single wire. The X1 is the next generation version of the flasher with our patented lockout and dynamic lockout modes. Lockout mode eliminates the flashing on each brake application in heavy traffic, decreasing the annoyance of the drivers behind you. The continuous flashing dulls the driver's attention, contrary to the flasher's purpose. Once the lockout mode is activated, the brake lights will flash only during the first brake application. When the brakes are released, the flasher starts the internal countdown. If the brake is subsequently applied in less than 10 seconds, the light will be solid and not flash. The X1 has a selectable timeout period between 0 and 50 seconds, so you can pick the one better suitable for your everyday commute situation. The dynamic lockout mode allows the lockout time to auto-adjust based on the brake usage. When the brake is used with high frequency, the lockout time will dynamically change from 10 to 60 seconds. The X2 is similar to the X1. It adds another feature called pulse mode. During the flashing, the light turns on and off in quick succession. The pulse mode switches the light between complete on and lower light intensity, so the light never goes out but alternates between dim and full power. The X2 programming is different from all other flashers. It requires a programmer circuit. With a programmer, it makes it easier to program the flasher as all the parameters are configured via smartphone or tablet. The programmer also allows updating the flasher's firmware when the new features are released. Let's take a look at how the flasher is connected to the vehicle. All the flasher models follow the same installation process. The power line connected to the third brake light bulb would need to be cut and connected to the flasher's red wire. The flasher's yellow is output and connected to the bulb. The black is connected to the ground or the bulb negative. Now we will discuss the programming process. Let's start with the S1 model. We are going to configure the flasher by connecting it to the 9V battery and configuring the flasher on the bench. You would need a 9V battery. Use the alligator clip wires to connect the battery to the flasher. Validate the polarity before connecting. Black to negative and red to positive. Take the red alligator clip and touch the red wire, and you should see the internal LED blink. The internal LED is connected in parallel to the output, so you can observe the output activation without connecting an external bulb. The internal LED is easily seen by the human eye, but it would be hard to see it with all the lighting used for the video. So we are going to connect an external light for better visibility. Both internal LED and external light would blink at the same time. Now we are going to connect white alligator wire. The white wire is used to configure the flasher. Take the other end of the alligator clip wire and touch the ground or black wire. We have connected the S1 flasher model, so the white wire will change the flash rate. The 4 flashes are fixed and cannot be changed. In the S1 model, touching the white to the ground will make the flash rate slower each time the white wire is grounded. Once the rate reached the slowest value, it would reset back to the fastest. When you satisfy with the flashing rate, just disconnect the power. You are ready to install the flasher. After the installation, the flasher rate can be changed by grounding the white wire to the chassis ground or bulb negative. Push the brake pedal so the power is supplied to the flasher and then start programming. Now we are going to connect the M2 model and configure it. The M2 connects the same way the S1 does. There are 4 different configuration parameters we can change in the M2 model. The programming process for the M2 model is different from the S1. Once you supply the power to the flasher, take the white wire and touch the ground. This puts the flasher into configuration mode and the brake light will quickly flash and turn off. The first parameter is the flashing mode, so the light will blink once, indicating the value of the flashing mode is set to 1. Touch the white wire to the ground one more time and the value will increment to 2, and the light will blink twice. Touch again and it will blink 3 times, then again and the value will be reset to 1. Hopefully, you got the idea of how to increment the parameter value. To save the selected value and go to the next parameter, touch the white to the ground and hold. The light will flash multiple times indicating the parameter is saved, and the flasher is moving to the next parameter. The second parameter is the number of light flashes. The light will flash 8 times according to the current value. Touch the white wire to the ground to increment the flash quantity, and then hold the white to the ground to save and go to the next parameter. The next parameter is the flash rate and the light will blink with the current flash rate. Use the prior described procedure to change and save the flash rate. The last parameter is the optional repeat configuration. Change it to the desired setting. Once done, disconnect the power, then reconnect the power to test the configured flasher. Repeat the configuration procedure if necessary. Now you are ready to install the flasher. Once installed, you can repeat the configuration procedure if necessary. Now we are going to connect the X1 model and configure it. The X1 connects the same way the S1 or M2. There are 4 different configuration parameters we can change in the X1 model. The programming process for the X1 model is similar to M2. Once you supply the power to the flasher, take the white wire and touch the ground. This puts the flasher into configuration mode and the brake light will quickly flash and turn off. The first parameter is the number of flashes, and the light will blink 8 times indicating the current value. Touch the white wire to the ground one more time, the value be increment by 1 and the light will flash 9 times. Every time the white is touched to the ground, the value will increment by 1 until it reaches the max and resets to 1. Hopefully, you got the idea of how to increment the parameter value. To save the selected value and go to the next parameter, touch the white to the ground and hold. The light will flash multiple times indicating the parameter is saved and the flasher is moving to the next. The next parameter is the flash rate and the light will blink with the current flash rate. Use the prior described procedure to change and save the flash rate. The third parameter is a lockout time. The lockout time will disable the flashing if the brake is applied before the time expires. For example, if the parameter is set to 2, it means 10 seconds of lockout time. If the brakes are reapplied within 10 seconds, the light will be solid. Let's take a look at a real-life example. I am going to disconnect the power from the flasher and simulate the braking. The light flashes for the first time, then the brake disengaged and engaged again. The light now is solid. The light will be solid until the brakes are not used for 10 or more seconds. The last parameter is a dynamic lockout. The value can be either set to 1 to disable it, or 2 to enable it. When enabled, the lockout time will increase if the brakes are applied before the lockout period expires. For example, if the lockout time is set to 10 seconds and the brakes are reapplied before it, the lockout time is now increased to 20 seconds. If it happens again, the value will increase to 30 seconds and so on. The frequently brakes are used, the longer the lockout gets. Once the lockout expires without the brake application, the lockout duration will be reset back to 10 seconds. Change the parameter to the desired setting. Once done, disconnect the power, then reconnect the power to test the configured flasher. Repeat the configuration procedure if necessary. Now you are ready to install the flasher. Once installed, you can repeat the configuration procedure if necessary. Now we are going to connect the X2 model and configure it. The X2 connects the same way as all flasher models. But the programming is very different from the rest of the flashers. To program the X2 you would need the flasher's programmer. The flasher programmer is standalone circuit. It is powered by a USB cable and could be plugged into a portable power bank, phone charger, or computer. The programmer allows the flasher to be programmed via phone with a simple-to-use user interface. It also allows upgrading the flasher firmware once it becomes available. Here are the X2 flasher and the programmer. The programmer has a power switch controlling the power to the flasher. Let's turn it off. We have a USB power bank so we can power the programmer. Verify switch is in the off position. Let's connect wires to the red, black, and white wires. Do the same on the flasher's side. And now let's turn the switch on and watch the blue LED. LED is on, indicating the programmer is successfully communicating with the flasher. Now we will connect the phone to the Wi-Fi network created by the programmer. Go to the Wi-Fi menu and select Timers Shop Wi-Fi network. The open Internet browser and enter the address 192.168.4.1 and click Go. You should see the following menu. Select Flasher's configuration menu. In this menu, you can see the flasher's configuration. The flash cycles, flash rate, lockout time, dynamic lockout, and pulse intensity. Let's change the flash cycles and click Save. The page displays the communication status with the flasher. First, information is uploaded to the flasher and then the programmer retrieves the saved configuration and displays it. Let's wait until the communications are finished. Then go back to the main menu and click on Test Flash Rate. You should see the internal LED blink. The LED would be hard to see on camera, so we're going to connect the external light. With external light we are going to power the flasher with 9 volts battery, so we must disconnect the power red wire from the programmer. Switch the programmer switch to the off position. Disconnect the programmer's red wire or the programmer will be damaged. Connecting 9 volts battery. Wait until the flasher communicates with the programmer and test the flash rate. When connecting the programmer to the already installed flasher, only connect black and white from the programmer to the flasher. If the 12 volts feed into the programmer's red wire, it will damage the programmer. The X2 model has also a pulse mode. In the pulse mode, the light alternates between full power and lower intensity, generating the pulsing effect. When testing the flash rate with the pulsing effect enabled, the flasher will flash the light normally, and then perform slow switching between fully on and set pulse intensity. This is done so you can assess the low intensity the light is set to. The programmer's main menu provides additional functionality such as updating UI, adding new flasher firmware files, and uploading the firmware to the flasher. Thank you for watching. Hopefully, you understand now the difference between models and how the flasher is installed and programmed.